This is Christian Swain, the CEO of Pantheon Sports. The Super Bowl may be over, but sports fans, it's time to shift gears because basketball season is just heating up. And you know what makes the action even better? Playing along with Prize Picks, the best place for real money daily fantasy sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in awarded winnings, Prize Picks makes it easy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections for a shot at winning up to 1,000 times your cash. And you know what makes the action even better? Playing along with Prize Picks, the best place for real money daily fantasy sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in awarded winnings, Prize Picks makes it easy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections for a shot at winning up to 1,000 times your cash. All-Star Weekend is almost here, and Prize Picks is where the real fans play. Whether it's the three-point contest, the dunk showdown, or the big game itself, Prize Picks lets you get in on the action. This week, I'm locking in my lineup with Jason Tatum for more than 29 points and Anthony Edwards for more than 25. Plus, I've got Anthony Davis for more than 12 rebounds and Luka Doncic for more than 8 assists. I like my odds. And the best part, Prize Picks pays fast. I cashed out in just 15 minutes last week. Ready to get started? Sign up today and use code Pantheon to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. You play just $5 and boom, you get $50 free. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code Pantheon to cash in before All-Star Weekend. That's code Pantheon, Pantheon, for an instant $50 bonus. So don't just watch the game, play the game with Prize Picks. Pick your players, lock in your lineup, and run your game. Sign up now at the link in the description because basketball season is just getting started.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Every cup of Nespresso coffee is an invitation to transform your morning routine into a ritual you can treasure each and every day. Using the Vertuo Pup, a simple touch of the button freshly brews bold aromas and a rich, velvety crema layer for delicious cafe-quality coffee at home. Whether you enjoy your coffee hot or over ice, every sip, every morning is unforgettable. Nothing tastes like Nespresso coffee. Visit Nespresso.com or our app to explore our full range of easy-to-use machines and coffees not found anywhere else.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to this edition of There Can Only Be One, the podcast that puts together the all-star best of playlist of your favorite bands and artists, and a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Hello to all of our listeners in San Marcos, California, and around the world. How are you all doing? Every now and then, when I invite a guest onto the show, I'm kind, I'm courteous, I have an open door policy, and I say, hey, well, who would you like to cover? And if you've listened to the show, you know that Marc Shea from the Performance Anxiety Podcast has excellent taste in music, but he sends me this list, and on this list is a band, and instantly, and he didn't hear this because it was over email, so he didn't hear this, I squeed. Because I was so excited because we're going to be talking about Concrete Blonde. Mark, welcome back to the show. Bringing the goods with you. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. It's been too long. How are you?
I am doing so good. So, yes, I did, in fact, squee when I saw Concrete Blonde on your list because there's an album in this discography that was an entire decade mood for me. What is it about Concrete Blonde that made you want to go down this road?
Oh, gosh. I love Johnette Napolitano's voice. Also, I love Jim Mankey. His guitar tone is so unique. I kind of think of somebody like Ty Tabor from King's X. who we covered.
Yes.
But, you can't mistake his sound for anybody else. And it's so unusual to find a rock guitarist. You're like, oh, that's that guy. But Ty and Jim are two of those guys. Their sound is just so them. It's nobody else.
Yeah, it is a very identifiable pairing when Johnette and Jim are working together. This is going to be one of those episodes where, if you haven't heard of Concrete Blonde, and trust me, you probably have, you probably just don't remember it if you do, this is one of those sounds that was very unique. Because there was really, to my memory, there's no other band out there that sounded like Concrete Blonde. No,
they were so unique, and I think that's one reason why a lot of people like them, and I also think that maybe that's one reason why they didn't explode the way I thought they would.
Yeah, because there was a stretch where, and it's funny because we're going to get to this in a little bit, they were constantly played in Canada for a stretch, and there's a point where Canada seemed to like them more than pretty much any other country. And you're right. I'm surprised they didn't get bigger than they were, but they were, at least in Canada for a hot second, huge.
Oh, interesting. They were big for a little while. Around, I guess, just before I really got into him, because I didn't get into him from the beginning. I will admit that I was a mid-career jumper honor there. So it was after Bloodletting came out, and I think it was even after Walking in London. So I think it was between Walking in London and Mexican Moon. That's when I really discovered them. I had heard of them, but never really gave them a chance because of, I don't know, I guess the people I knew that listened to him, I was like, I don't like anything these people like. None of the music they like, I like. So why listen to Concrete Blonde? But I heard something. I don't know. Honestly, I don't even remember what it was. I could have been. I'm pretty sure it was something off of Bloodletting, and I was just like, oh, okay. Well, this is different. This is not what I thought it was going to be. And I immediately went out and started picking up everything I could find by him.
Well, here's what we're going to do. We're about to go through 10 albums of Concrete Blonde. As always, we're not doing any best of or any live albums. Normally, I also say we don't do any compilations. However, we are making an exception in this case. The album Still in Hollywood, because this is actually a collection of live tracks, alternative tracks, B-sides, and more. So there's enough new stuff on this album that isn't on any other disc that definitely makes Still in Hollywood worthy of talking about. And we're going to start a little differently because we're going to start with an album that, technically speaking, is not Concrete Blonde, but it is. The EP self-titled of Dream 6, which is basically Concrete Blonde. At this point, the band is Johnette Napolitano, James Mankey, and Michael Murphy on drums, released in 1983. This actually featured an early version of the song Rain, which in itself was featured in the soundtrack to the movie The Party Animal, which starred Tim Carhart, who is still acting today and has recently appeared in the Yellowstone TV show. But he also played the violinist in Ghostbusters, as well as roles in The Hunt for Red October and Working Girl. So now you get a little bit of movie trivia in a music episode. I didn't even know this existed. So thank you because you're looking at this going, well, what about Dream 6? I'm like, well, we're doing Concrete Blonde. And then I did the research. I'm like, I didn't know this existed. Like, fill us in on this one.
I don't really know all that much about this. I ran across this, and I wish I remembered how I knew this was Dream 6. I want to say I read an article in a guitar magazine or saw an interview or something with Johnette, and they mentioned it. And a couple of years afterwards, I'm just in a record shop flipping through stuff, and I see this one of the little cardboard sleeves and said Dream 6. And I'm like, what? Is this what I think it is? And I picked it up, and it was the Dream 6 EP, which I was under the impression at the time had never actually really been released, but I do believe it was a legitimate release in 83, but I don't think it came out in CD in 83. So I'm not exactly sure the lineage of how it went from a very interesting EP to a CD in, I'm going to say 94, 95 when I bought it.
Yeah, this was a complete surprise for me. And you still hear like that early Concrete Blonde songwriting sound. Obviously, the fact that Rain made it on a later album, well, of course, but it's raw too. Like you hear almost like the starting to come together, starting to find their own sound vibes on this disc.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very early sound, very raw, but like you said, but you know, Johnette's voice is so unique. There's no hiding it. So it was really interesting to hear the beginning developments of what would become Concrete Blonde.
All right. So off of the Dream 6 EP, what did you go with?
I had to go with Rain. There's the rest of the songs are pretty good, but Rain just, I mean, from its earliest incarnation here, it's just a great, great song.
Okay. I may be a little biased on this one. And I say that because whenever I think of Johnette Napolitano and her voice, I have the music video for Joey kind of stuck in my head. And the kind of situation of where I would see a singer like her perform in like this very dark, almost like smoky bar kind of thing. Yeah. So whenever I hear a song that has her vocals sounding like that, it kind of triggers exactly what I'm looking for. So when I heard Daddy Lied off of this, it's exactly that vibe, and she just soars on it. I did have Human Condition, Tomorrow May Never Come, and the song that made it really hard to pick Daddy Lied, Slow Down, but there's a lot of good on this EP.
Oh yeah. It was tough to pick, but for some, I think it's just because I love that song from the Mexican Moon album so much that maybe that colored my pick in this instance, because I know what that song went from to what it became. And it's not a huge difference between the two, but you can definitely tell this is an early version.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the cool thing when you go through a discography. And part of the reason why I love doing the show is that when you have songs that, you know, sometimes they release the demo versions or some other kind of different take on it, you see the genesis of songs and sometimes how they age and they mature, or even listening to a live album later on in their career, as opposed to, you know, doing a song off of an early disc. You hear the evolution of the band when you go through the entire discography, especially when you do it in chronological order like I do, like I'm clearly OCD in the way I prepare for these shows, but I make zero apologies because it's fun to do.
Yes. And you shouldn't make an apology. It's great fun.
Well, I'm Canadian, so it's ingrained in us that we apologize for everything, so.
That's a good point. Okay.
This is Christian Swain, the CEO of Pantheon Sports. The Super Bowl may be over, but sports fans, it's time to shift gears because basketball season is just heating up. And you know what makes the action even better? Playing along with Prize Picks, the best place for real money daily fantasy sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in awarded winnings, Prize Picks makes it easy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections for a shot at winning up to 1,000 times your cash. And you know what makes the action even better? Playing along with Prize Picks, the best place for real money daily fantasy sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in awarded winnings, Prize Picks makes it easy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections for a shot at winning up to 1,000 times your cash. All-Star Weekend is almost here, and Prize Picks is where the real fans play. Whether it's the three-point contest, the dunk showdown, or the big game itself, Prize Picks lets you get in on the action. This week, I'm locking in my lineup with Jason Tatum for more than 29 points and Anthony Edwards for more than 25. Plus, I've got Anthony Davis for more than 12 rebounds and Luka Doncic for more than 8 assists. I like my odds. And the best part, Prize Picks pays fast. I cashed out in just 15 minutes last week. Ready to get started? Sign up today and use code Pantheon to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. You play just $5 and boom, you get $50 free. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code Pantheon to cash in before All-Star Weekend. That's code Pantheon, Pantheon, for an instant $50 bonus. So don't just watch the game. Play the game with Prize Picks. Pick your players, lock in your lineup, and run your game. Sign up now at the link in the description because basketball season is just getting started.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Pepsid Complete knows that food is one of the best parts of game day. That is, until heartburn strikes. Thankfully, just one chewable tablet of Pepsid Complete provides dual-action heartburn relief with an antacid that starts working instantly and an acid reducer that lasts all day. So you can stay focused on that second helping of chili without worrying about heartburn. All day based on 8-hour symptom relief studies during the day. Use product only as directed.
We now move on to the self-titled debut full-length album of Concrete Blonde, released in 1986. Now we have Harry Rushikoff on drums, hit number 96 on the Billboard 200. There were 3 singles off of this one. True hit the mainstream rock charts, peaking at number 42. So now we've got the band actually as Concrete Blonde. And it's funny because I picked True off of this disc.
Oh, nice.
And it's interesting because this actually has a bit of a Tom Petty vibe to me. Like, this is hooks. This song is all hooks, very much like a Tom Petty song would.
That's true. And one of the great things I love about your podcast is the same thing. I go back and I listen to albums I haven't heard in a while. And what I discovered on listening back to Concrete Blonde's discography is that early on, I went back. So like I was saying, I got into them in the early mid 90s. And so I went back and got their back catalog. And because I'm a completist, and I was not a huge fan of the debut or of Free. They were good, but I liked their later stuff much better. And then going back and listening to it, I really like them now. I have such a better appreciation of both of those albums now. I'll go back and listen to them more now. My opinion is completely changed on this. So for the self-titled album, it was tough. There's Still in Hollywood, which is great. That song rears its head a couple of times here. I almost wanted to pick Beware of Darkness, but I kind of hate picking covers for a band as the best song on their album. Sometimes you don't have a choice, but I went with Your Haunted Head.
Okay.
It's a little bit experimental on the album, a little bit different, but it's very up tempo, upbeat, very energetic, and that's what I really like. More crazy guitar than a lot of the other songs.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned their covers because something I've noticed about Concrete Blonde is that when they do a cover, they own the cover, because there are some covers throughout this entire discography. And in some cases, there are probably listeners right now that are listening to the show going, well, I know of one cover that probably stands out, probably amongst all of them. And yeah, we're going to get to that album in a little bit. Don't you worry. We're getting to that album. Free, released April 1989. We now have Alan Block on bass. The album peaked at number 90 on the Australian charts. There were 3 singles off of this one. God is a Bullet charted the highest in the US, hitting number 15 on the US alternative charts. But Happy Birthday hit number 81 in Australia and number 82 in Canada. And let's be honest, if you write a song called Happy Birthday and it's not the actual Happy Birthday song, you're going to have bands covering that one. I have not covered this one yet, but guaranteed some band out there has covered this because they want to be able to play a Happy Birthday song and not have it be the traditional Happy Birthday song.
Yep.
But this album's good.
Yeah. Like I said, the debut and Free, I went back to it and I have a brand new appreciation for them. It was tougher than I thought to pick favorites off of these. Like, I went into the debut thinking, I love Beware of Darkness. From the very first time I heard the album, I was like, I'm going to pick that. I probably don't even have to listen, but I went back and listened. So Free, I'm just going to pick one out of thin air because I've got 3 that I wrote down that are contenders. God is a Bullet, Run, 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 and It's Only Money. I want to pick It's Only Money, but it's a cover, and I don't want to pick a cover until I have to.
until you absolutely have to, but yes.
So I'm going with God is a Bullet.
You know what? We line up there, but as I was listening to this disc, and I was in the car on my way to work listening to this album, and there were 2 songs on here, and I swear to you, I listened to each song about 5 times each because I was trying to determine which one was going to be my pick. It was that hard. On the side, I also had little conversations on my short list because that one also really stood out, but not enough to fight for the pick like these 2. Okay. God is a Bullet 1, because let's be honest, that is pure James Mankey guitar work on that one.
Yes.
And the only reason why Help Me didn't win was because I found the mix didn't help the song. I think Help Me is and this is not to just, to talk down on the album here. Help Me has the worst mix on the disc.
Okay.
But it's a damn good song.
Yeah. I'm kind of blown away by how much I really enjoyed this album again, because again, my old notion of that they're just, the band was still finding themselves. They didn't write anything as good as stuff off of Bloodletting or Mexican Moon, but they did. And I'm so glad I went back and listened to everything.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, I need to go back and take a look at the live albums, because if there's a live version of Help Me, then maybe that's got the mix that I'm looking for. But I wanted to pick that song, but I just couldn't, because God is a Bullet is the song and the mix combined that just kind of stand out. And also now with the first 2 official Concrete Blonde albums, I've picked the lead-off track off of both. So Concrete Blonde knows how to start an album.
Oh, yeah. Let's see if we go 3 for 3.
Bloodletting, released May 15th, 1999, with Paul Thompson on drums. Peter Buck of REM actually played mandolin on the song Darkening of the Light. The album hit number 49 on the Billboard 200, and here's where it gets different. Number 8 in Australia and number 4 in Canada. Ooh. That's how big Concrete Blonde was up here on this album. It is gold in the US and Australia. There were 4 singles off of this one. Joey charted the highest, sitting number 1 on the alt-rock charts, and right now everyone's sitting there going, oh, that song! Because everyone heard that song, because it got played everywhere.
The song about alcoholism.
Right? Well, it feels like the whole album is kind of like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The album is a mood, let's be honest. But this is, without a doubt, the biggest Concrete Blonde album of their entire discography, just from a public perspective. Your thoughts on this disc?
It's my favorite of the Concrete Blonde. Well, it, as with most things in my collection, it goes back and forth, but it only goes back and forth between 2 albums, and it's either Bloodletting or Mexican Moon. Both of those albums are incredible, almost flawless to me. And the weird thing about Bloodletting is that Jonette wrote it, she said it was her self-indulgent album that she had just ended, or I don't know if she ended it or it was ended, but a relationship had ended, and she wrote all these songs to get over the relationship. And she said she'd never done it before, and she says, I'm never doing it again. So this album, an album like Bloodletting, will never happen again. So unfortunately, I mean, fortunately, it's one of their best albums ever. Unfortunately, they really didn't make an album like it again, and because it was their most popular from what I understand, and the chart rankings and all. But I've got 4 that I'm trying to, and just like the last one, I'm gonna kind of go for what I'm feeling at the moment. So it was a toss up. I mean, there's obviously Bloodletting, the vampire song, and you got to be surprised because Joey is not one of the 4. Actually,
you know what's funny? Joey is. I'll be very honest. My short list is listed as the whole damn album. So, but by technical standards, Joey then would be on the short list. But Joey is not a song that I necessarily go to off of this album. I completely agree with you. It's a good song, but everything else on it is so much better.
Yeah. The only one that I'm not the biggest fan of, I think, is Beast. But, which is why I say it's not exactly a perfect album. So, Bloodletting, I Don't Need a Hero, Lullaby, and Tomorrow Wendy. And for ages, Tomorrow Wendy was my favorite song off of that. In fact, Andy Preboy had an album where because he wrote that song, where he released his version. And I was like, oh, wow, this is going to be great. And I bought it and I listened to it. I'm like, oh, this is nowhere near as good as Concrete Blondes. And I ended up actually trading that album because nothing else was as good as anything on the Concrete Blonde album. So I'm going to go with a sentimental one just because I've played this for my wife a lot. I'm picking Lullaby.
That is such a good song.
Yes.
Oh, just the echo and the reverb on James Mankey's guitar on that. I actually kind of like the Beast mainly because Mankey, pardon the pun here, Mankey goes wanky on the whammy bar on that one. So like it's a bit of a driver.
It is. To me it doesn't I don't know, it just kind of I don't know. I don't want to say it doesn't. For me, it doesn't seem to fit, but it does. I don't know. It just the whole, like you said, the whole album is a mood, and that one just kind of takes me out a little bit.
I guess there were angry moods at the time.
Yeah. So, it wasn't a bad relationship.
Exactly. So let me paint a picture here,
please.
I'm not going to say how old I was when this album came out because I don't want to feel old. So just bear with me here. But I'm sitting down in my living room after school, watching much music and totally not doing my homework because that's what I would do. And this video comes on and it's all like sepia tone, black and white mixed. And you have the vocals of both Andy Preboy and Jeanette Napolitano doing Tomorrow Wendy. And this song, like I knew of Joey and I knew of Caroline because those videos have been played on Much Music quite a bit. This song came on and, they mentioned, Concrete Blondes, Jeanette Napolitano, and I already knew I liked Joey and Caroline at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember earmarking my allowance for that week. And I was going to go to the record store and pick up a copy of Bloodletting. And I am damn skippy that I pretty much wore through the cassette. Because
I believe it.
This whole album was played in my little yellow Sony Walkman that played backwards. I got the good one. And there were times when I would listen to Tomorrow Wendy and then I would rewind it and then I would listen to Tomorrow Wendy. Then I'd rewind it a little too far and listen to the end of Joey and then listen to Tomorrow Wendy again. This song, and right now people are sitting there going, well, way to give away your only one. Don't worry. There's other songs that I'm going to gush over. But as soon as you mentioned Concrete Blonde, I'm like, well, Bloodline's going to be easy because, hey, I know the album, and B, it's Tomorrow Wendy. Because that is such a good song.
Yeah. It was almost my pick, too.
Yeah. It's funny. Our friend Brian Colburn over on My Weekly Mixtape, he had put out this question on social media recently. And the question was, what is the best opening lyric? And instantly, Tomorrow Wendy comes to mind. It's, with that, it is complete now, two ends of time are neatly tied. A one-way street walking to the end of the line. And like,
that's incredible songwriting.
This song is poetry. It is utter poetry. Concrete Blonde's version, you're right, is the best version, but it's that video of Andy Preboy with Johnette Napolitano that led me to this love of this album. So yeah, it's Tomorrow Wendy for me without a doubt.
Oh, excellent choice.
But yeah, you can't go wrong with Lullaby. You really can't. And you also can't go wrong with The Darkening of the Light.
No,
that's another really good one.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the only two songs I would not have made my list would be Beast and The Sky is a Poisonous Garden.
Again, those songs are good and have their moods and moments, but I could see how they don't necessarily fit the vibe of the album. Yeah. But if you're looking for them, they're good.
Oh, yeah. But, and you can't have an album with just the same feel all the way through. You need something to break it up. And those songs do that to a great degree.
I can imagine those songs are great live.
Oh, I'm sure. I only saw Johnette live once, but it was with Pretty and Twisted. So it wasn't even with Concrete Blonde.
I should have mentioned this, by the way, at the top of the show. We're not going to be covering Johnette Napolitano's solo albums, nor are we covering the Pretty and Twisted side project. Although, that's a one and done with Pretty and Twisted, so maybe at the end of the year, that one will have to come back. We'll have to see.
That, and she did the Vowel Movement album with Holly Vincent.
See, now I'm just going to have to do an entire Johnette Napolitano second episode. Oh, well, sign it up. All right, here we go. Walking in London, released March 10th, 1992. Harry Rushkoff is now back on drums, and Tom Peterson added in some bass work on the disc. The album hit number 73 on the Billboard 200, number 13 in Canada because we like them better, 18 in Australia, and 32 in New Zealand. There were 3 singles off of this one. Ghost of a Texas Ladies Man hit number 2 on the alt-rock charts. So obviously you have the follow-up to their biggest album of all time, an album that made absolute waves. And I know Johnette Napolitano said that there would never be another Bloodletting, and she was right. But how does Walking in London follow up for you?
It's a bit disappointing for me because it seemed like a step backwards for me. I mean, the song that I pick is one of my favorite Concrete Blonde songs that they've done, but it seems like instead of embracing what they did with Bloodletting, they went back to the cowpunk sound with Ghost of a Texas Ladies Man and some other less than memorable songs, in my opinion. So I had 3 that I chose from, and one is a cover. Again, and I did not choose that. So they did James Brown's It's a Man's World. They just shortened it to It's a Man's World. But I liked Why Don't You See Me as well. I think that is an eerie song, and it's that one of the standouts on the album. But my favorite, and please, any French Canadians listening, or anybody in France, or anybody who studied French, please forgive my butchering of that beautiful romantic language. I chose Les Corps Jumeaux. But that is by leaps and bounds my favorite song off the album. It's one of the most beautiful ballads that they've recorded ever.
Yeah, it's hard to deny that even in not her native tongue, Johnette Napolitano just kills it no matter what. Oh, yeah. I also had It's a Man's World on my short list because that is a killer version of that song.
Yeah.
I also had Someday on the list, but every now and then, there's a lyric. And for some reason, the lyrics are beautiful and haunting and poetic. And other times you get a lyric where I can't believe they were able to use that word. But here we are when they sing, "You don't scare me, she cried, to my ectoplasmic lover from the other side. Ghost of a Texas ladies man." And the funny thing is, like, I know we weren't a fan of the song, but that lyric just kills. And it's because you've got the "from my ectoplasmic lover from the other side." Like, that is such a fun lyric. And the thing is, I understand that if you're looking for another bloodletting, you're not going to find it in Walking in London.
Right.
And I think it sounded like there was almost a conscious effort to step away from that mood and that vibe and do something different. Ghost of a Texas ladies man still slays.
Yeah, it like I said, it's not my favorite. It's quality. I mean, it sounds like an earlier Concrete Blonde song, like it could have been off of their self-titled or free albums. So, and I think maybe that tainted my view of it, hoping there was more that was going to propel the band forward instead of looking backwards. But I can also understand, and I didn't know this at the time about bloodletting and the whole relationship thing, and she's never going to make another one. But I can understand not wanting to play off of that too much, probably because it was a bit painful for her to go back and go through that.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand the idea of purging your emotions through songwriting, and clearly that was bloodletting. I mean, hell, Taylor Swift's made a career out of it, so why not, right? But
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you're looking to walk away from that pain and walk away from that mood, for the writer, it's great. Be able to branch out and do something else. For the listener who's looking, because this happens all the time, right? How many times has a band changed direction? You're like, whoa, what are you doing? No, go back to what I paid for.
Yeah.
But it's still Concrete Blonde here.
Yeah. And her voice is just, I don't care what she sings. It's just, so I love listening to it. She could, as they say, sing the phone book, and I'd listen to it.
In a different language too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Mexican Moon, released October 19th, 1993. Paul Thompson and Harry Rushkoff kind of split the drum duties on this album. Number 67 on the Billboard 200, number 36 in Canada, and number 53 in Australia. There were 3 singles off of this one. Heal It Up hit number 16 on the modern rock charts. So now we're back to an album that you obviously love.
Yes.
How hard was it to pick from this album?
Oh, damn near impossible. It was another bloodletting for me. I mean, to me, this was the album I was looking for right after Bloodletting. It's just it's a incredible album. And what I realized after doing a little research on the album, and I didn't realize when it was brand new when I bought it, was so she does, well, the whole band actually performs on this album. The band does Mexican Moon, and they do an English version and a Spanish version. And apparently I took Spanish for 6 years in middle and high school, and I didn't realize this. Her Spanish in this is very bad. It's like none of the verbs are conjugated. There's words that it's a mess, but it doesn't matter. I don't care. It sounds amazing. So who knows? I mean, like you said, she, perhaps her French actually, I don't even think she sang in French on Le Coeur Jumeau. I think somebody else sang in French on that one.
Well, I mean, if Megadeth can pull off "À tout le monde,"
yeah, that's
"À
true.
tous mes amis," "Je vous aime, je dois partir," then yes, Concrete Blonde can do whatever the hell they want. And I guess this is Google Translate before Google actually existed.
That's what it sounds like. All right, so I had so many songs on this one. I mean, Rain, I wanted to pick so bad, but since I've picked it for Dream 6, I'm not going to pick it on 2 albums. I can't do that. Heal It Up was a very strong contender. Both versions of Mexican Moon and Jenny I Read. I think I'm sticking with Jenny I Read.
Yeah, you pretty much listed my short list there. Mexican Moon, Jenny I Read, and Rain were my short list. But I did end up going with Heal It Up. And mainly because this song was giving me vibes from Help Me off of the Free album. This was the production quality that had Help Me actually had. That would have been my pick from that disc, and not God is a Bullet. But Heal It Up is kind of like the same vibe that you're getting out of that song, just much gooder sounds.
I like it. And Jenny I Read, there's a vibe with Jenny I Read, and Janet's storytelling in the album, on that song, is just phenomenal. The lyric writing, everything is just, it was hard between it, and Heal It Up almost won because she just lets loose on the chorus, and it's amazing when she lets her voice just soar. It gives me goosebumps.
I will admit that there's a song title on here that needs to be the subject line for every single letter of resignation written to your boss. Jesus, forgive me for the things I'm about to say. when the job is not good, just make that your subject title on your memo, and then you're good to go.
It's a good idea. I'm going to keep that one in mind
right now. So people are like, "Oh, here we go."
Yeah. Well, go check it out if you haven't heard it, because
that's a damn good song too. Yeah. Still in Hollywood, released November 1st, 1994. This is that disc that is the collection of B-sides, live versions, and all takes. I am so happy that this disc is in the mix because everybody knows their cover of the Leonard Cohen song that they released on the Pump Up the Volume soundtrack. When that song was released as a single, at the time, it had hit number 20 on the alt-rock charts. There are a ton of songs here where I'm like, oh, please give me a chance, because I was so... You know how this show goes.
Yeah.
If the song's only on a soundtrack, you don't get to talk about it.
Exactly.
But Concrete Blonde saved me here. And I'll just tell you right now, that's my pick, because that... And I know you don't want to pick a cover song, but I guarantee you right now, everyone listening is going like, well, maybe this is the time I get to pick a cover song. You did a Leonard Cohen song, and you made it better than Leonard Cohen wrote it.
That's tough.
Like, this song alone made the Pump Up the Volume soundtrack one of the best soundtracks of the 80s. And it was already a good one to begin with.
Yeah.
But the original, with the strings and just that Leonard Cohen, very bassy delivery, it's a mood. But then you take that song, you add that James Mankey reverby guitar sound, and then Jeanette just bellows into it. And the fact that she can hit those low notes too, like hit those lower register and then soar, like this song, I think from their entire discography, I think showcases her range the best.
Yeah, it definitely one of the, and I kind of thought Heal It Up is in that vein. And it's funny because I remember when Pump Up the Volume came out, my friends hated Everybody Knows. They're like, this is so much worse than Leonard Cohen. And I'm like, let me listen to it. And I listened and I'm like, no, God, I love the Concrete Blonde version. I don't know what you guys are talking about. This is a killer cover. I mean, her voice, like you said, her voice just goes everywhere it's supposed to go. So Everybody Knows was on my short list, and it was difficult to pick between the two. So probably Will also made my short list, but I didn't choose it. And one of the coolest covers that Concrete Blonde did not make this album, and it possibly would have been my pick if it had made an album. It was a B-side on one of the Mexican Moon singles, which a lot of these songs were, but they did a cover of Shout by Tears for Fears, and it is awesome. It's live, and it's kind of silly, and it's Concrete Blonde having fun live, and it's great. It's definitely not a faithful rendition, but it is great. But that being said, I did pick a cover for this album, and it's Cheap Trick's Mandocello.
Good call.
Because that is it, kind of like picking Lullaby. It's just a beautiful song, and their treatment of it is just so tender and beautiful. It's just it's just gorgeous.
I had their cover of The Ship Song by Nick Cave and Little Wing by Jimi Hendrix, because
Dude, anybody try to cover Hendrix, that's a tall order. And to cover Hendrix but sound like Concrete Blonde is just wild.
Yeah, I mean, when you cover Hendrix, and there are some artists that have covered Hendrix, the inclination is to basically sound like Hendrix, because how do you take Hendrix and make it your own? They did that with Little Wing. I mean, you go back to the Adventures of Fort Fairlane soundtrack, and Richie Sambora doing a cover of The Wind Cries Mary. It's very Hendrix-esque. I mean,
I forgot all about that.
It still has Richie Sambora's signature vocals on it, singing lead, but guitar-wise and structure-wise, it's still the Hendrix song. Concrete Blonde has this knack of making the song their own. So even here, while yes, there is still like the meat of the song from the Hendrix version, it's very much a Concrete Blonde song.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's Mankey's tone really that makes it theirs.
And that's the thing, like Jeanette Napolitano, rightfully so, is lauded for her vocals and her range and just her power. And I mean, I could go on just how she may have been one of the best singers of the late 80s and early 90s in modern and alternative rock. But Concrete Blonde isn't Concrete Blonde without that Mankey guitar tone.
Nope. It's pretty and twisted.
Yeah. It's smoky. It is not ethereal per se, but it definitely has those moments on certain songs. But I'm sure there are probably people who love Concrete Blonde who were sitting there messing with their pedals, just trying to get that right tone.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I couldn't tell you how to get it. I mean, I've got some pedals. I've got an Alesis preamp because I wanted to emulate Nick McCabe from the Verve when I was playing, and I've been able to kind of come close to Nick McCabe. I have no idea what the hell James is doing. I can't figure that out.
Concrete Blonde y Los Illegals. It's a collaborative album between, of course, Concrete Blonde and Los Illegals, which is a California-based Chicano rock rap group. Released March 5th, 1997. Again, this was another one of those ones where I didn't even know this album existed because at this point, Concrete Blonde had already kind of taken a break, and this one never got any radio play up here in Canada. Like, did it get any play in the States at all?
None. It was released and forgotten about. And I mean, I don't even remember how I found it. Because I got it brand new. And I was probably just combing through in the record store and found it. I'm like, oh, okay. The new Concrete Blonde. But what is this Los Illegals thing? I don't know. Well, let's get it and I'll listen to it. So, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't listened to it much. I don't particularly like it all that much. It's a very strange album. And when you have two bands combined to do one album together, it's I don't know. I can't even really think of another time that this has happened like this. And if I can think of a couple examples of songs, but not entire albums. And it's 50-50 whether it's any good.
Yeah, I mean, you do have those moments where, two groups will kind of combine. You saw that recently with From Ashes to New and Against the Current, although that's more just Chrissy Costanza kind of jumping over from that one. Obviously, you've had Hollywood and Dead pairing up with like the likes of Papa Roach for certain songs. But here, you have this interesting mix where you have some songs that sound like Concrete Blonde, and you have some songs that I assume sound like Los Illegals because this is the only time I've ever heard of them. For me, there's only one song on here that feels like a proper duet. And that's the song that stood out the most. And that was Another 100 Years of Solitude.
Yeah.
The song feels like it should have been on the Desperado soundtrack or Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Yeah, I can see that.
It has that feel.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. So my three were three back-to-back ones. So it was, although I liked La Llorona, I was thinking more 100 Years of Solitude, Maria Elena, and Ode to Rosa Lopez. And more because they were weird. Like, Ode to Rosa Lopez is about like the OJ trial.
Mm-hmm.
It's so bizarre. And that's the one I picked just because it's so bizarre. And I don't know, just because Concrete Blonde's presence in that song is not up front. That sounds more like a Los Illegals song. But it's kind of funny. It's got a humor to it. It's very, very weird. And that's why I picked Ode to Rosa Lopez.
See, here's the thing. If we were doing like a Los Illegals show, Caminando would probably be my pick because that sounds very much like what a Los Illegals song would be like. And Viva La Vida wasn't bad too. But again, this is a Concrete Blonde episode, which is why another 100 Years of Solitude kind of hits because it's kind of dirty. It has almost like that outlaw kind of feel and showcases both very well.
It does. And then one of the other songs that I was considering very hard, but it's a cover, is Deportee.
Yes.
So, and that's one that does kind of mix the two of them pretty well. So I did like Deportee, and if I didn't give myself that constraint of trying not to pick covers, I probably would have picked that. So maybe that's my pick instead. I don't know.
This episode is brought to you by Nerds Gummy Clusters, the sweet treat that always elevates the vibe. With a sweet gummy surrounded with tangy, crunchy nerds, every bite of Nerds Gummy Clusters brings you a whole new world of flavor. Whether it's game night, on the way to a concert, or kicking back with your crew, unleash your senses with Nerds Gummy Clusters.
Sergeant and Mr. Smith, you're gonna love this house.
Bunk beds in a closet?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
So good, so good, so good.
Get ready, because it's time to save at your Nordstrom Rack store. Now through February 23rd, take an extra 40% off red tag clearance boots, jackets, and sweaters. We're talking the best cold weather styles from Vince, Cole Haan, Sam Edelman, and more. All on sale for even less. All sales final. You never know what you'll find, but you know it's gonna be so good. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
5 years later, we get Group Therapy, released January 15th, 2002, hit number 15 on the Billboard Indie album charts. So now, obviously, they're kind of on their own. This was released on Manifesto Records, and we had to wait a bit, but they're back, even with True Part 3 being on this disc. So they pulled the Metallica.
Yes, they did.
So what did you go with off of Group Therapy?
Okay, so Group Therapy, I love this album. I mean, I think it's what I find really interesting about Jeanette's stuff is so she on Walking in London, she went French, did some French, then she went real super Southwest for the next several albums. You know, a lot of things, everything was had a Southwest influence to it, and she did that a little bit in Group Therapy. They kind of pulled it back a little bit. And so one of my topics was Yo Llorona, which I love. It was between that, Roxy, and Inside Outside. And I'm still considering which one it's going to be. And because I love Yo Llorona, but it doesn't really sound Concrete Blonde. It sounds like it would have been like the best song off of Concrete Blonde y Los Illegals, because Jim is playing that Spanish style guitar. So I'm going to go with Inside Outside.
A good pick. I mean, I had Tonight, Violent, and Take Me Home on my short list, but these last two albums of Concrete Blonde, And I wonder how much of that influence for those discs came from that Los Illegals collab album. They do kind of lean into that Tejano kind of vibe on these last two albums.
Yeah.
But I have to go with a song that I described in my notes here as, and this is the actual notes, I'm going to read this out here. A glass of cognac, a slow cigarette drag, and it's so steamy. Your Lorna.
Oh,
I went with it. I had to go with it.
it is a great song. And to be honest, up until we started recording, that was my pick. And then I kind of flip-flopped just now.
Yeah. So I'm glad you did, so we can put both songs under the playlist.
Yeah.
By the way, obviously on our website at notthatbadcast.com, I always put the Spotify playlists that we make from the list that we make on this show. However, it should be noted that there are a number of albums that are on this show that we're talking about that are not available on Spotify, including Concrete Blondie, Los Illegals, Group Therapy, and Mojave. Now, Group Therapy and Mojave I did find on YouTube, so you can go and find those songs there. So it's going to be, if you're looking at the playlist and going, well, where's this song and where's this song? I'm sorry, I tried, but they are out there for you to listen to.
Check Discogs and buy the album.
Exactly. Yes, buy the album. By all means, buy the album. But, also listen to where you can find it.
Oh, yeah.
Last album to get through here, Mojave, released June 29th, 2004, now with Gabriel Ramirez on drums. The album was released on 1130 Records. This is the last ever Concrete Blonde disc, and really leaned into that Tejano sound on this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even the title, Mojave. It's they really did go Spinal Tap with these drummers, didn't they?
Well, I don't know. Did any of them spontaneously combust?
Not that I'm aware of. I can't think of it. Maybe Harry did. I don't know. But anyway, so I really, really like this album. I mean, that was the weird thing for me with Concrete Blonde, is that they kind of went opposite of what a lot of bands that I like did, where I love the early stuff. And then as they get older and more mature, their sound softens a bit. And I'm just like, Pearl Jam is a great example for me. I love their early stuff, and their late stuff, I'm just like, I just can't get into it. But Concrete Blonde did the exact opposite, where I wasn't the biggest fan of their early stuff, but their later stuff I absolutely love. So, that being said, this was another difficult pick, because, again, like we mentioned very early, when they do a cover, they make it their own, and they kick ass at it. And they really kicked ass on Ghost Riders in the Sky. It's not my pick, but it was close. I also love the A-Road and Hey Coyote. That Hey Coyote was my pick until like a day or two ago, and it's now Himalayan Motorcycles. Himalayan Motorcycles. It's just so experimental. It's like one of the most experimental things that I think Concrete Blonde has done, and it's just cool.
See, I have no qualms picking a cover. I pick Ghost Riders in the Sky because you're right. It is. You said everything that needs to be said on that one. Absolutely. I did have Through With This and Someone's Calling Me on my short list. This, maybe it's me. And remember that I listen to a lot of prog, so this is
probably you.
This is probably me. It's totally me. I'm the problem. It's me. This felt like a concept album.
Yeah, it's definitely Southwestern influenced and possibly Southwestern conceptual in some way.
I mean, I could easily picture this album playing as a soundtrack for a film, like the entire basis for a film. And again, obviously people are going to think about Once Upon a Time in Mexico, like that whole Desperado kind of vibe. These last albums just kind of leaned into that.
I feel like you're right with soundtrack, but I'm thinking it could be more of a soundtrack for something like From Dusk Till Dawn.
Mm-hmm. So basically, anything that Robert Rodriguez is going to direct needs a Concrete Blonde soundtrack. Also, that being said, Robert Rodriguez, if you're listening, if you can put together Concrete Blonde again, I'm just saying.
Hey, you can't hurt.
Right?
I mean, look at the amazing discography they put together. And so this came out the day after my birthday in 2004. So it's been 20 and a half years since they put out an album. It's about time.
Right? Make it happen. I know they're slightly longer in the tooth, but I guarantee you that they will still sound just as good. But now, Mark, you know the pain of this show here.
Yes, I know.
So please remind our listeners what songs you picked. And then from that list, if there can only be one Concrete Blonde song, what's it going to be?
Okay, so Dream 6, I picked Rain. Self-titled was Your Haunted Head. Free, God is a Bullet. Bloodletting was Lullaby. Walking in London, I'm going to butcher this again. Le Coujumo. Mexican Moon was Jenny I Read. Still in Hollywood was Mandocello. Concrete Blonde, Y Los Illegals was Ode to Rosa Lopez. Group Therapy, Inside Outside, and Mojave was Himalayan Motorcycle. I'm gonna go with, and I don't even know if this is representative of the band. I just love it so much. Is Lullaby from Bloodletting.
I mean, really, let's be honest. Anything off of Bloodletting is going to be a good, solid pick.
Oh yeah. You can't pick a song off of that and somebody go, oh no, I'm not into that. I don't like that. That's not my style.
So for me, off of Dream 6, I went with Daddy Lied. From the self-titled album, I went with True. From Free, I went with God is a Bullet. From Bloodletting, I went with Tomorrow Wendy. Walking in London, I went with Ghost of a Texas Ladies Man. Off of Mexican Moon, I went with Heal It Up. Off of Still in Hollywood, I went with Everybody Knows. Off of Concrete Blondie, Los Illegals, I went with Another 100 Years of Solitude. From Group Therapy, I went with Your Llorona. And off of Mojave, I went with their cover of Ghost Riders in the Sky. And this is painful.
I know.
Because
so hard, isn't it?
On one hand, you have a cover that bests the original of an iconic Canadian singer-songwriter, Leonard Cohen.
Right.
From an iconic soundtrack, from an iconic movie that defined the zeitgeist of its era in Pump Up the Volume, Everybody Knows. Now, on the other hand, you have the song that literally led me to listening to the entire discography of this band, In Tomorrow Wendy.
So
and I'm going to
between two covers.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, it's kind of like going back to that Anthrax discography, which was literally episode 1 of this show. And you realize how many of those songs are covers and they're their biggest songs. Like, it's hard not to pick a song like Got the Time for Anthrax. It's a cover song. It's hard not to pick a song like Antisocial from Anthrax. It's a cover song. So I'm picking between two cover songs.
Right.
And I'm going with the song that brought me. I'm dancing with that one. I'm going with Tomorrow Wendy.
Oh, it's one of the best things they've ever recorded, though.
Yeah. And it's funny because there are different versions out there of the song, whether it be Andy Preboy's version. I know there's like what they call like the vocal demo version of the song. There's obviously Concrete Blonde's live version, which is on the Still in Hollywood disc. No matter how you slice this song, it's haunting, and you find yourself screaming the lyrics with Jonette when she gets to that point. And it's pure poetry.
It's beautiful, and it's one of my favorite songs they've ever recorded. So I'll accept a cover.
I would.
It's your podcast, but I'll accept your.
Thanks, Mark. I would dare say And this is tough, right? Because, and I need to point this out, 1990 also saw the release of Queensryche's Empire album.
Yes.
And Queensryche is one of my favorite bands of all time. And that album stands the test of time to today and gave us some of the biggest Queensryche songs of all time. I would argue that Tomorrow Wendy might be my favorite song from the entire year of 1990.
Oh, wow.
And that's in the year of the release of the biggest album of one of my favorite bands of all time, which also just happened to have the release of one of my favorite bands of that era as well, being Concrete Blonde. So, yeah, like I would take Tomorrow Wendy off of anything off of Empire. That's including Silent Lucidity.
Wow, that's saying something. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that's and maybe a bold hot take, and I may change my mind once I realize what other albums are out there in 1990. But if I'm juggling between those two, like, and we've done a Queensryche episode on this show, and my only one pick did not come from Empire, so maybe it's not a hot take because Tomorrow Wendy's pretty damn good.
It really is. It's one of the best things they've done, and one of the things I've noticed. I've done this podcast a few times. And one thing I noticed this time, we only picked the same song once this time.
Yeah, that being God is a Bullet, but it's a pretty damn good song to pick off of that one.
It really is. But for me, what it shows you is that there's so much good music in their discography for so many different styles, so many different flavors of music, or, tastes, I guess I should say, of music.
And we almost didn't have that because, as I mentioned, had Help Me had better musical production as far as the recording process went, that probably would have been my song, but God is a Bullet had the songwriting and the production value.
And I was going to pick It's Only Money, but I didn't want to pick a cover, especially early on in their discography.
So we got one, but it was close. Mark, thank you so much for this. Now, before you go, please remind our listeners where they can find you and the Performance Anxiety podcast out there on the interwebs.
Sure. Performance Anxiety. We're both part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. You can find me on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, everywhere. Just look up Performance Anxiety and look for the little microphone with that sweating bullets out there. That's my logo. You can also find us on social media at Performance ANX on both Twitter and Instagram. And I got a Facebook page, but that really hasn't been active in like a year and a half because everything just ends up posting on my personal page by accident. So I don't really do a whole lot of Facebook anymore. But I also do a lot of concert photography. So if you want to check that out, I'm on Instagram at Marc X Shea. That's MarcXShea. And I've got some really killer episodes coming up soon. I just told you about one, not before we got into this. We've got Edwin from My Mother Earth coming up, and a couple other pretty, hopefully, assuming we get a date going, some pretty heavy hitters coming up. So it's going to be a fun year in podcasting.
Always happy to promote the Can Rock whenever we can. It's all good. Mark, thank you so much for this, and cannot wait to have you back on the show. And to you, our dear listeners, well, you guys know the drill. If there is an artist that you want us to cover on There Can Only Be One, or an album that you want us to cover on Spin, Shuffle, Skip, hit us up on social media at OnlyOneCast, wherever you are on social media, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, get ready, dear listeners, because coming up at the end of February, our Grading on a Curve special looking at the nominees for Razzie's Worst Movie of the Year. I've watched them. I'm still recovering. You are not ready. That's Mark. I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is There Can Only Be One, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.
Do you love it loud? Come to Rockin' Pod Weekend in Nashville. Rock convention featuring panels, interviews, podcasts, signing sessions, vinyl, pop culture collectibles, and more. Over 30 celebrity guests, members of LA Guns, Accept, Kicks, and more. Live concerts, Nashville Rockin' Fest Thursday, Rare Hair on Friday, Tuck Smith and the Restless Hearts Saturday, Punchlines and Backlines All-Star Comedy Show on Sunday. Full details at rockinpod.com.